told a story about seeing Bun Street and Suge Knight get knocked out by a guy named Bruce.
Was he actually fighting himself, or was Bun Street doing the fighting?
They both jumped. They tried to do boom, boom. They lost.
Oh, so this dude Bruce fought both of them at the same time?
They lost, dude.
And I told Bruce, I said, man, police behind us. We get in the turning lane at an apartment in Inglewood. And the lit a joint. Right when the police were behind us, lit a joint. And looked at me and said, quit panicking. That's Bruce for you. That had hard, man.
Bruce Richardson to me was a dope boy. He's one of the most successful dope boys in the game at that time.
Suge Knight might have been known as the boogeyman of hip-hop, but even the toughest figures aren't invincible. That was made clear when Suge crossed paths with Bruce Richardson, a man with a serious reputation for fighting.
I was on the other side of the room, but that boy Bruce Richardson beat their ass. You know what I'm saying?
I guess he knew karate?
Yeah.
Bruce wasn't just any street brawler. He was a skilled martial artist and known around his hood as one of the best street fighters out there. His fists had no boundaries, and not even Suge Knight and his entourage were off limits. When the two clashed, Bruce didn't just hold his own. He completely humiliated Suge and his crew. They were beaten so badly that it left a mark on Suge's tough guy persona.
Was he actually fighting himself, or was Bun Street doing the fighting?
They both jumped. They tried to do boom, boom. They lost.
Oh, so this dude Bruce fought both of them at the same time?
They lost, dude.
But then, something shocking happened. Just one day after this incident, Bruce was offed under mysterious circumstances.
But then I heard the next day he ended up dead.
Yeah.
There's a lot to uncover, so let's dive in deeper. Bruce Richardson grew up in a modest home on 65th Place in South Central Los Angeles, an area often referred to as Players Land. From a young age, he had a fire in him. At just 8 years old, Bruce started training in martial arts, and it didn't take long for him to master the craft. Over time, he became an exceptional street fighter, known for his unmatched skills. He didn't just fight for show. He won gold medals and trophies, proving his talent. But in the streets, he built a reputation by never backing down from a fight. Word was that Bruce fought at least 20 guys in his neighborhood, and half of them ended up needing hospital care after facing him. Back in the day, the Black Karate Federation was booming in the area. Young men were getting into karate, lifting weights, and unfortunately experimenting with drugs, a dangerous mix that often led to trouble. Despite the chaos, Bruce stood out not just for his fighting skills, but also for his charisma and popularity. At Crenshaw High School, Bruce played varsity basketball and was well known across campus. One day after class, he got into a heated altercation with Big U, another respected figure in the neighborhood. Allegedly, the beef started over a woman, and Bruce didn't hesitate to throw the first punch. He sent Big U flying into the bushes.
And Bruce walked up, and he like, ooh, and he talking about the chick. But I ain't really tripping off what he's saying, then he just fired him.
Big U fought his way out, and the two continued their battle, turning the schoolyard into a full-blown rumble when the basketball team and some gang members jumped in.
I'm sitting on the wall, and I fall back in the bushes, and I get to kick, and I kick my way out the bushes, but his first L. No, it wasn't an L.
There's long been speculation about whether Bruce was involved in gang life. Some say he briefly ran with the Brims, a notorious gang, while others point out that his home was technically on the mid-love side. However, those close to Bruce have confirmed he wasn't officially tied to any gang. Instead, Bruce had a unique influence over the guys in his neighborhood. He built a strong following, and the crew started calling themselves the 65th Place Hustlers, representing their block, Baby Kansas Avenue. After graduating high school in 1983, Bruce shifted his focus. His goal was clear: make money. And he found the perfect opportunity as the crack epidemic began taking hold in Los Angeles. Bruce quickly became one of the most successful drug dealers on the west side of South Central, running a lucrative operation.
Bruce Richardson to me was a dope boy. He's one of the most successful dope boys in the game at that time.
In just 2 years, he was pulling in so much revenue that he was able to pay off his childhood home and buy another property on the next block. He moved his mother to View Park, Windsor Hills, also known as Ladera Heights, so she could live far from the dangers of his business. Meanwhile, he set up an apartment in Inglewood that served as the hub for cooking up product. With hundreds of thousands of dollars pouring in, Bruce had to find a way to legitimize his earnings. In 1986, he officially obtained a business license and opened Genius Hand Car Wash on Crenshaw Boulevard. To keep things running smoothly, he put members of the Rollin' 60s on the payroll, giving them steady work. Bruce wasn't just focused on business, though. He knew how to enjoy the fruits of his labor. He was often spotted driving through the neighborhood in his sleek black Mercedes-Benz, customized with white curtains, turning heads wherever he went. People often underestimated Bruce Richardson because of his clean-cut appearance, but that was a mistake they only made once. One day, he was in line at Ralph's grocery store buying what must have looked like an unusual amount of baking soda with $5,000 in food stamps. As Bruce was waiting, a large, muscular guy who looked like he could have been Debo's twin from Friday started yelling at him for holding up the line. The man kept pushing it, mocking Bruce's suit and stepping into his personal space. Bruce wasn't one to let disrespect slide. Without a word, he hit the guy with a perfectly executed front kick, sending him flying. When the guy tried to recover, Bruce finished the job with a series of well-placed blows. After handling business, Bruce calmly checked out, then slipped the cashier $200 to make sure they didn't call the cops. That was Bruce, a mix of precision, confidence, and generosity. Even seasoned street veterans spoke about Bruce's fearless nature. An OG gang member once recalled a ride with Bruce that left him speechless. They were driving when the OG noticed a police car tailing them. Nervously, he told Bruce about it, expecting him to take some kind of evasive action. But Bruce didn't even flinch. Instead, he lit a cigarette, took a drag, and told the OG to relax. "Ain't nothing gonna happen," Bruce said calmly.
And I told Bruce, I said, man, police behind us. We get in the turning lane at an apartment in Inglewood. And the lit a joint. Right when the police were behind us, lit a joint. And looked at me and said, quit panicking. That's Bruce for you. That had heart, man.
Sure enough, nothing did. The OG couldn't believe Bruce's nerve and how unfazed he was, even with the police right on their tail. But Bruce wasn't all toughness and street smarts. He had a generous side too. He was known to spoil the people around him, buying them expensive gifts and making sure they were taken care of.
And Bruce went to that jewelry store. He bought a ring for $68,000. He bought a Rolex watch for $44,000. I looked at Bert. I said, man, I'm good, man. He said, nah, I asked you to go me down to the jewelry store. I ain't gonna buy all this stuff and I tell you to pick you something.
By this time, Bruce had built significant wealth through his crack empire and his legitimate businesses, but he wasn't content to stop there. Always looking to expand his income streams, Bruce began exploring new ventures. Inspired by Suge Knight's meteoric rise as the CEO of Death Row Records, Bruce decided he could do the same. Maybe even better. He had the resources, the connections, and the charisma to pull it off. Bruce started managing rap groups, making moves in the music industry, and even earned a mention on Ice-T's legendary track 6 in the Mornin. One of the groups he managed, Dramacydal, caught the attention of Tupac Shakur. Pac wanted the group to join forces with the Outlawz as backup performers for his All Eyez on Me album. Bruce, ever the savvy businessman, gave his blessing, but only on the condition that Suge Knight promised him a percentage of the album's royalties. Suge agreed, but after the album was completed, he backed out of the deal and refused to pay Bruce what he was owed. This kind of betrayal didn't sit well with Bruce. He had entered the music industry to build something legitimate and leave the streets behind, but Suge's refusal to honor their agreement reminded him that the industry could be just as cutthroat as the streets. Bruce and Suge had clashed multiple times before things finally reached a boiling point one night at a club. Suge, known for his brashness, approached Bruce's girlfriend and told her to leave Bruce and come with him. Bruce wasn't having it. He walked up to Suge and unleashed an uppercut that dropped him in his tracks. After dropping Suge with a brutal combo, Bruce didn't stop there. He turned his attention to Buntry and gave him a beating too.
Was he actually fighting himself, or was Buntry doing the fighting?
They both jumped. They tried to do boom, boom. They lost.
Oh, so this dude Bruce fought both of them at the same time?
They lost, dude.
It took 3 of Suge's other goons to finally contain Bruce and drag him out of the situation. People in the club were stunned. It wasn't a secret that Suge would want revenge after being humiliated like that. Sure enough, just 2 weeks later, Bruce was found shot dead in his own home. At first, the police thought Buntry and Neckbone might have been behind the Emder, since this kind of retaliation was usually their style. But as the investigation continued, it didn't add up. What was puzzling to investigators was how the KEers had gotten into Bruce's home in the first place. Bruce's place was a literal fortress. Reinforced steel doors, double deadbolt locks, heavy bars on the windows, and a complex alarm system. It was clear that whoever offed him had managed to get in, and the only logical explanation was that Bruce had let them in. He wouldn't have just opened the door for Suge's goons, not after the altercation that happened just 2 weeks earlier. He might have opened the door for someone who appeared official, like a few people dressed in police uniforms. The mystery surrounding his death deepened when it was revealed that Tupac, who had built a close relationship with Bruce, had called Bruce's father shortly after the Emder to assure him that he had nothing to do with it. However, Tupac couldn't say the same for Suge Knight. It was clear that Suge's name was hanging in the air, but there was no concrete proof linking him to Bruce's death. Just 2 days after Bruce was offed, tragedy struck again when Bruce's girlfriend was shot to death in a car near some railroad tracks. The circumstances surrounding her death were eerily similar, and her Emder, like Bruce's, remains unsolved to this day. Many still speculate that Suge may have had a hand in both killings, as his reputation for ruthlessness was well known. Suge's history of run-ins with the law, his connections, and his willingness to do whatever it took to maintain power made him a prime suspect in many people's minds. Suge Knight's reputation for causing chaos and stirring up trouble goes back a long way. He's no stranger to violence and legal issues. In 1995, he pleaded no contest in a federal case for assaulting 2 rappers back in 1992 at a Hollywood recording studio. This earned him 5 years of probation. However, things escalated in 1996. On September 7th of that year, Knight and his death row crew, including Tupac Shakur, got into a violent altercation with Orlando Anderson, a known Crips gang member. This was at a Las Vegas hotel. The fight violated his probation, and by October 22, 1996, Knight was back in jail.
Just 3 days after the awards, Tupac and others attack an LA gang member in a hotel lobby after a Mike Tyson fight in Las Vegas. The attack will land death row head Suge Knight in jail.
The following year, on February 28, 1997, he was sentenced to 9 years in prison for that violation but didn't serve the full term. He was released early from FCI Sheridan on August 6, 2001. Unfortunately, Suge couldn't stay out of trouble. In 2003, he was sent back to prison for 10 months after violating his parole when he got into an altercation with a parking lot attendant. By this time, his frequent incarcerations had started to take a toll on Death Row Records' success. Knight's reputation for conflict extended beyond legal issues. In 2006, he had a public fallout with former friend and collaborator Snoop Dogg after Snoop dissed him in Rolling Stone. Knight's alleged ties to the Mob Piru street gang also came under scrutiny in January 2008 during a police crackdown in Compton. Later that year, on May 10th, Suge got into a fight over money outside a Hollywood nightclub called Shag. The brawl left him unconscious for 3 minutes, but even after regaining consciousness, he refused to cooperate with the police. His troubles didn't stop there. In 2008, while filing for bankruptcy, Knight sued Kanye West over a 2005 shooting incident at one of Kanye's pre-video music awards parties, where Suge himself was shot in the leg. Then, in February 2009, he suffered facial injuries after being punched at a private party in Scottsdale, Arizona. By 2012, Knight was still finding ways to get into trouble. In Las Vegas, he was arrested after cannabis was found in his car, and police discovered several outstanding warrants for past traffic violations. Fast forward to August 24, 2014, and Knight was at another pre-video music awards party, this time hosted by Chris Brown at the 1OK nightclub in West Hollywood. During the event, Knight was shot 6 times but miraculously walked out of the club and into an ambulance. CCTV footage later confirmed that he was the intended target of the shooting. Despite the severity of his injuries, Knight didn't cooperate with the authorities investigating the incident. After his release from the hospital a few days later, Suge's friend Keith Middlebrook told reporters that Knight planned to recover quickly and come back stronger. Fellow party attendee Jeezy later shared on The Breakfast Club that he narrowly avoided being shot himself, saying someone had pushed him out of the way just before bullets started flying. Suge Knight's legal troubles continued to mount in late 2014 when he and comedian Cat Williams were both arrested on October 29th for allegedly stealing a camera from a paparazzi photographer in Beverly Hills the month before.
Suge Knight, of course, rap mogul, and Cat Williams, comedian, they're under arrest after a high-profile robbery, I guess you could call it.
Yep, because the men are accused of stealing a paparazzi's camera.
The charge, second-degree robbery. Both Knight and Williams pleaded not guilty, but the drama didn't end there. While in jail, doctors discovered Knight had a blood clot in his lung, adding health issues to his growing list of problems. The robbery trial was eventually delayed because Suge was already facing far more serious charges related to a separate case. On January 29, 2015, things took a tragic turn. Knight was involved in a hit-and-run incident in Compton, California, that left one man dead and another seriously injured. The victim who died was Terry Carter, a close friend and co-founder of Heavyweight Records, while the survivor, filmmaker CLE Sloan, suffered severe injuries, including fractures in his ankles and head trauma.
Where Knight's truck apparently runs over the two men. The truck backs up, hits one man. Seconds later, the truck comes back and runs over.
Witnesses claimed the incident wasn't an accident. They alleged Knight deliberately ran the men over after a heated argument on the Straight Outta Compton film set spilled over into a nearby burger stand parking lot. Security footage later surfaced, appearing to show Knight mowing down both men with his truck before fleeing the scene. Suge claimed it was self-defense, but the evidence painted a different picture. As the Emder trial began to unfold, Suge's health became a recurring issue. In March 2015, he was hospitalized after telling a judge he was going blind and experiencing other complications. That same month, he fired his legal team, claiming he wasn't getting proper medical treatment while in custody. Around this time, his bail was initially set at a staggering $25 million. The announcement didn't sit well with Suge. He collapsed in court after hearing the figure. His bail was eventually reduced to $10 million, but the legal battles and his health issues only got worse. By July 2015, his lawyer revealed that Knight might have a brain tumor, which only added to his already long list of ailments. Despite his declining health, the judge refused to lower his bail. Over the next year, Knight went through multiple attorneys, swapping legal counsel repeatedly as the Emder case dragged on. In July 2016, the court denied Knight's request to reveal the identities of key prosecution witnesses, citing his history of violence as a risk factor. Knight grew emotional after the ruling, stating he feared his health problems would cause him to die in jail. By March 2017, he was back in the hospital due to ongoing blood clots, a condition that had plagued him for over 2 years by then. These health setbacks repeatedly delayed his trial, pushing it all the way to September 2018. In February 2017, he was hit with yet another indictment, this time for allegedly threatening F. Gary Gray, the director of Straight Outta Compton. Prosecutors accused Suge of sending menacing text messages back on August 8, 2014, where he reportedly made threats of death or bodily harm. The details of the texts weren't made public, but the accusations were serious enough to lead to a grand jury indictment. Suge, however, pleaded not guilty, insisting he hadn't threatened Gray, despite the new charges. This particular case didn't stick. As part of his plea deal in the death of Terry Carter, the charges related to the alleged threats were eventually dropped. When the trial finally arrived, Suge decided to cut his losses. He pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter, a move that spared him a life sentence but still carried heavy consequences. On sentencing day, the judge handed Knight a 28-year prison term, 22 years for running over Terry Carter, and an additional 6 years under California's 3 strikes law. It was a harsh but not unexpected outcome, given his long history of violence and run-ins with the law. As of March 2023, Suge Knight remains incarcerated at R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. He won't be eligible for parole until October 2034, leaving him with a long road ahead behind bars. His life, once filled with power and influence in the music industry, has become a cautionary tale of violence, bad decisions, and the heavy price of a life lived recklessly. As for Bruce, he will always be known as a hustler extraordinaire and someone who did right by people.